On one of Ellie and Edward's dates, Ellie decided to confess her feelings to Edward. They decided to meet at Boutique Cafe. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the city skyline. Edward was seated in the cafe, waiting for Ellie, who seemed to be running late to show up. Few minutes later, the door opened and there, Ellie came in looking elegant. She looked more beautiful than before, and her beauty was radiating like a light in the room. She wore a simple yet elegant dress that accentuated her figure, and with each step she took towards Edward, she exuded a quiet confidence and poise. Edward couldn't help but to admire her the more. She was looking more beautiful than ever, and every other man's eyes in the room were on her. Edward was lost in his thought of him admiring her, and was only brought back to reality when Ellie snapped her fingers right at his face. "Am I that beautiful? Is it that you can't resist my beauty?" Ellie jokingly asked while smiling. As she smiled, Edward fell more in love with her as the smile made her more beautiful, showing her glittering white set of teeth. "Hello, are you still here with me? And if I may ask, can I have my seat?" Ellie said, trying to get Edward's attention. "Sure you can," Edward said, coming back to reality. "You look," Edward said, short of words, while still admiring Ellie's beauty. "Astonishing, right?" Ellie said, taking her seat, cutting Edward short of his words. "Yes, that's the right word," Edward said, smiling, and they both burst out into laughter, with Ellie's laughter filling the air, a melodious sound that added to her allure. They both enjoyed each other's company, making them forget whatsoever they were going through at that moment. They both talked about everything they could talk about, laughing away their sorrows. When they were done drinking their coffee, they decided to take a walk by the seaside. As they both walked together, they could feel something strong between them. Edward knew he was in love but couldn't admit it, as he kept telling himself he wouldn't fall in love again. Ellie, on the other hand, couldn't hide her feelings anymore, and then she decided to ask Edward a question while they were seated by the seaside. "Have you ever fallen in love before?" Ellie asked Edward, trying to search his face for answers. "Yes, but it didn't end well," Edward replied, avoiding Ellie's face. "Same here. I fell in love with a guy whom I loved so much, but in the end he betrayed and shattered my heart. Since then, I promised myself not to ever fall in love again. But you know what? I met a guy of recent with whom I have fallen madly in love with. Although I keep denying the fact that I am in love with him, I can't hide it anymore. And so, I have decided to give love a chance again. I will confess my love for him, hoping he would feel the same for me," Ellie said, looking at Edward. "That's good, but as for me, I don't think I can give love a chance ever again. I wish you best of luck. Anyways, I have to leave now. I have got a meeting at the office tomorrow. I need to get prepared," Edward said, standing to leave with jealousy written all over his face. "I love you," Ellie said in a soft tone, as Edward turned to leave, making him halt. "What?" Edward queried, surprised at Ellie's confession. "Yes, you are the one I love. Whenever I am with you, I feel like I am at home. Although I had fallen in love before, but I don't think I have ever fallen as hard as this for someone." "I love you, Edward," Ellie said, looking straight into Edward's eyes with her words hanging and waiting for Edward's response. "I am sorry, but I do not feel the same. I have been hurt and my heart is shattered, which I do not think can be mended. I like you. I won't lie about that, but I do not see myself being in a relationship with you. Moreover, I am married," Edward said, avoiding Ellie's eyes. "I know you are married to Sophia Porras, but I do not care about that. Look into my eyes and tell me you do not love. If you do not love me, why did you come looking for me after our first encounter? Why did you tell me we can be more than friends? I know you are hurt, and you are scared of falling in love again, but try to give love a chance with me." "I love you, Edward," Ellie said, holding Edward's hands and looking into his eyes, trying to get into his thoughts and know what he was thinking. "I am sorry I can't do this. We can continue our relationship as friends and warming each other's bed, but not as lovers." "But wait, did you run a check on me?" Edward asked, curious. Wait. Warming each other's beds? Is that all I mean to you? All you want from me is just for me to be your sex mate and not that you truly love me? Ellie asked Edward, feeling hurt and surprised. I didn't mean it that way, Ellie. It's just that. Edward stammered, not knowing what to say. You know what, I do not want to ever see you again, Ellie said, breaking free from Edward's grip with tears rolling down her eyes. Edward stood still, watching as she walked away, feeling helpless. Since that day, Ellie cut off all sort of communication from Edward. She stopped picking up his calls and wouldn't grant him audience whenever he frequented Cheetah's. During this period of separation, Edward realized how deeply in love he was with Ellie, and when he couldn't bear her silence again, he decided to confess his feelings to her and give love a chance once again. When he got to Cheetah's, what he saw wasn't what he had anticipated. There he saw Ellie dancing with a guy with them very close to each other. The guy held her very close to him and he whispered something into Ellie's ear, which made her giggled. Seeing this, Edward's jealousy aroused, and not being able to withstand the sight in front of him, he moved close to them. Get your fucking hands off her, Edward said in an authoritative tone, disrupting the guy and Ellie's moment. And who the hell are you to tell me that? Are you her boyfriend? She doesn't belong to anyone. She is just a slut working as a stripper at a club, the guy said with a smirk on his face, giggling. In the twinkle of an eye, Edward landed a punch on him. Don't you dare call her a slut. She is my woman and nobody dares to touch her except from me, Edward declared in front of the audience with shock on Ellie's face. In no time the guy retaliated, and they both engaged in a brawl. This caused commotion and mayhem at the club. They were both separated, with the guy threatening to get back at Edward on his way to the exit. After the guy had left, Ellie looked at Edward, who was covered in bruises. Get yourself treated, she said, making her way to exit. I love you, Ellie. Took me too long to realize that. I am so sorry for being a fool and hurting your feelings. Will you forgive me and give me a chance? Edward said, moving close to Ellie, who had halted upon hearing what Edward said. Edward looked at Ellie, searching her eyes for answers, but Ellie kept quiet, not knowing what to say. Without a word from Ellie, Edward leaned in and gently pressed his lips to hers. It was a soft, tentative kiss, filled with all the promises of a new beginning. But what Ellie and Edward never knew was that the scene was witnessed by both Sophia and Richard, who had come to the club to enjoy.